Can anyone explain to me why Cyberpunk 2077 Collector's Edition is going to be $250?
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball. Today's show also brought to you by hotels.com and by Grip 6 Belts. We are undertaking something which I've never done before, trying to get together Patreon subscribers, listeners to the podcast, to do a listener NBA mock draft. We're going to have 22, 23 people coming in, taking over the role of GMs for the NBA teams and making their picks for the upcoming NBA draft. I don't know if it's going to go off without a hitch. I guess we'll find out. Michael Bolton, he wants to know as well.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's get to it indeed. And with all that said, let's head into this 2019 NBA mock draft. At pick number 1, probably the easiest pick on the board, we're going to the New Orleans Pelicans. With that first selection, I've got John Bush here from Minnesota to make this pick for the Pelicans. John, this isn't too much of a no-brainer. You're not gonna disappoint me and shock the world, are you?
I'm not gonna disappoint. I love John Morant, but I'm going with easy choice, Zion Williamson.
Zion Williamson is the easy choice there. So in terms of this fit, we're hearing all this talk today from Woj and Mark Stein about this Anthony Davis trade, appearing like it's pretty close to happening. Where does Zion fit with this Pelicans team? They're going to be building around him. If you were the GM and trying to build guys around him, what sort of position are you looking to play Zion in, and what guys around him do you look to get?
Yeah, I got to be honest. The news that they want to hold on to Kuzma with the Lakers, that's a bummer because that'd be a big piece for New Orleans. But getting Lonzo, getting Brandon Ingram, getting that number 4 pick is huge. I would still go the Knicks route, though. I'd try to get Dennis Smith Jr., Kevin Knox, Mitchell Robinson, and that number 3 to get Barrett there. But looks like it's pretty close with the Lakers.
It looks like it's not far away from happening there with the Lakers. John makes that pick for the Pelicans with Zion Williamson there at number 1. John, thanks for jumping on. Let's go to the Grizzlies now at pick number 2, a pick which I assume is going to be pretty straightforward as well. I've got Devin Penner here from Nashville, Tennessee, right very close to Memphis country. Devin, what are you doing at pick number 2?
So at pick number 2, we're going to go ahead and take John Morant.
John Morant, that's a pretty straightforward selection there. Is this say that Mike Conley isn't getting traded? Would that change your pick at all, or do you have Ja clearly as that number 2 guy in this class?
I think I got Ja clearly at number 2, even if Conley stays. I mean, worst case scenario, Morant can learn from Conley and develop around Conley, and even be work around some 1 and 2 situations. I think with that, ideally, I think we would be able to get Conley off the books and try to acquire some future assets because we're clearly in a still rebuilding mode. So I'd like to be able to build around that some. But either way, I think we're still taking John Morant.
Yeah, I think that is probably the right call. This draft's a weird one in terms of the talent level, and there's no clear second tier guy I don't think behind Zion, but Ja probably is that guy I'd be going for there. What do you think is his major strength and in terms of pairing with, say, Jaren Jackson Jr.?
Leading the NCAA in assists last year is a big deal. He's a distributor, not necessarily a score-first guy, but the ability to score the ball is obviously a positive. So being able to run some pick-and-roll action with Triple J would be great. We think that they would pair nicely together.
All right, thank you, Devin, for that pick. Ja Morant goes to the Grizzlies at number 2. Now we go to pick 3 in this Locked On Fantasy Basketball NBA mock draft. We had Eli Mondesir Jr., who was making this pick, but for some reason he is not logging on, but he has given me his pick in advance. He's from Brooklyn, and Eli has gone with Jarrett Culver there at number 3. A little bit of a surprise from Texas Tech. I've seen a few people that have Culver ahead of Barrett. It's not probably the way I would have gone here, but Barrett and his, interesting shot selection at times can be a problem. You can make that argument for Culver. I think his upside is a little bit limited there, but perhaps if the Knicks are still looking to acquire these big name free agents, which of course that plan may have changed a little bit with the Kevin Durant injury and the word on Kyrie Irving not necessarily looking as closely at the Knicks, Barrett might have been a better fit in that situation as a higher usage guy, but I can understand taking Culver, and Eli had discussed with me in the past, he just does not believe in Barrett as a prospect, and that's completely fair enough. As I said, after these first couple of guys, it does get really, really flat to me in terms of where these prospects lie. So Eli went with Jarrett Culver there at number 3 to the Knicks. At number 4, Jeff Takimoto. I don't know if I've pronounced that incorrectly. Jeff, how's that for pronunciation?
You nailed it.
Cool. Well, Jeff, you have got the Lakers pick at number 4. We are assuming here that this isn't a pick in a trade for Anthony Davis, which by 24 hours time this could be the Pelicans pick, but you're making it for the Lakers as their GM. Probably do a better job than Rob Pelinka, to be honest. So, Jeff, who are you picking there at number 4?
I'm actually going to go with Darius Garland.
Ooh, okay. So there's definitely a slider here in this class, and that, of course, is RJ Barrett. So Darius Garland, we didn't see much of him in college at Vanderbilt. Only played 5 games with that knee injury. What is it about Garland that you are intrigued by to take him here at number 4? Is this the guy you were zeroed in on before the slide of Barrett?
Yeah, definitely. The Lakers have 3 guys who are sort of a similar height and similar build in LeBron, Kuzma, and Ingram. And they're really lacking shooting with Kuzma kind of regressing after his rookie year, And so I think they're kind of lacking in both shot creation and just shooting overall. With Lonzo and LeBron there for now, the weakness in his playmaking and his passing is kind of they'll be able to help ease the load there.
All right, so Garland goes to number 4, a guy that has that. There's so many guys I talked about this on the show the other day with Cole Zwicker talking about so many players not being great shooters, whereas Garland had really strong numbers, obviously limited sample size, but a guy that can hit deep threes as well, and being able to be that secondary ball handler with the Lakers and be someone who can actually shoot. I do think it's a strong pick. Jeff, that does that for you, so thank you for jumping on and making that selection for the Lakers. At number 5, I am acting as the Cavs GM, so I am hit at number 5, and I didn't expect to be in this position.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
So I've got a selection here which I didn't think I'd be making. I was tossing up which direction I was going to go, but to me, I have to take RJ Barrett here at this spot as he slid down to number 5. Playing alongside Colin Sexton, who is a pretty high usage guy, but I could see him turning that down. At the 2, they don't have a huge amount. They had Chetty Osman play at the 3, but he's probably can be more useful at the 4 in terms of when Kevin Love eventually gets dealt. Barrett could be this piece that they look to build around. It is hard for him, and he did struggle at times in Duke, and he's not like he's going to be having other high usage guys around him or other really highly talented players once Love moves on. So I think that Barrett here, as a guy that can play make a little bit off the wing, who can hopefully develop that shooting, I think this is the right pick. I can't really see any other way that I could go here apart from selecting RJ Barrett at number 5 to the Cleveland Cavaliers. All right, so now we go to pick number 6, Kyle Knorb. And Kyle, I apologize, I've been mispronouncing your name through all of these Dynasty lottery drawings we've done. I think you're in about every one of my Dynasty leagues pretty much. Kyle Knorb from Nebraska. You have the reins for the Phoenix Suns here at pick number 6. What are you doing?
Well, Phoenix kind of sucks.
Yes.
Those first 5 picks, they all, that was my first 5. So I think I'm going to go Cam Reddish, actually.
Okay, so ignoring the need for a point guard, although I don't think the need for a point guard in Phoenix is as high as what everyone else claims to be, because their point guard already plays there and his name's Devin Booker. So you are going with Cam Reddish, who had a really disappointing season in college this year. The shooting was horrendous, but how much of that was just a weird fit? How much of that was him not being a good shooter? Because he's shown that ability in other areas through high school and other sort of camps. So are you just banking on real upside here with Reddish?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's just upside. You figure you can put him. I mean, you can play wing, and so you play Booker, Bridges, and Cam Reddish 1, 2, 3. I mean, you're not going to get killed defensively. You could be able to hide Booker somewhere, and you just got to find a 4.
Yeah, I think Reddish can be a solid enough defender there on the wing as well. TJ Warren's playing the 4 last season. I think Bridges can slide up occasionally and play that spot. It is a tough ask though. Josh Jackson can't really play the 4, so there is still some need for someone else to jump into that position. But going with upside again in this class where there's just no real elite level talent outside of Zion, it is just about who has this sort of star potential rather than who can come in at pick 6 and be a 4th starter on a solid team. That's really, it's not, you're not reaching for the clouds there. So I understand the pick. So Cam Reddish, Kyle makes that selection for the Suns at pick number 6. That will take us on now to pick number 7, the Chicago Bulls. Mike Glickman from Barrington, Illinois is here to take on the role of John Paxson and Gar Forman. I'm sure, again, he will do a better job than what they will do in real life. Mike, the Bulls, what are you looking to do here?
Josh, I do not appreciate that comparison. However, I will make the selection. It is Kobe White, point guard, North Carolina.
All right, so Kobe White, the point guard, a guy who probably not the greatest distributor, but at least someone who can shoot, unlike the Bulls' current starting point guard in Chris Dunn. How do you see the fit between White and Levine in that backcourt?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that White can push the pace, assuming that Boylan wants to run. So, I think they'll both handle the ball some. I like the fact that White can catch and shoot. He's got to get better off of the dribble, but I suspect he'll be able to improve that as he goes along.
So he's a relatively high usage guy that does need the ball in his hands a lot, much like Levine. But you've got the other guys, I guess, around like Wendell Carter and Otto Porter, 2 guys who don't necessarily need as many touches. It is a pretty strong pick. The Bulls are clearly not sold on Chris Dunn as a point guard, rightfully so. So going with Kobe White here does make quite a bit of sense for the Chicago Bulls. Mike, thank you for jumping on and making that selection in place of the aforementioned Gar Pax. Next up, we have, who is it? I think we've got the Atlanta Hawks up next. We've got Will Langston, straight out of Atlanta, Georgia. Will, are you ready to go and make this pick for the Atlanta Hawks?
I am. I'm going to go with Brandon Clark out of Gonzaga.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so we've got a bit of a slider here in the draft with DeAndre Hunter still available. You know how much that I talked about Brandon Clark's fantasy potential with Cole on the show yesterday. Cole really likes him. I think it fits in pretty well with what this Hawks team wants to do. Is that how you envisage it? Is it more of a fit situation, or you just see him as best player available?
Honestly, I'm kind of making the fit a little bit secondary. I think that Clark is probably one of the most talented guys in this draft. I've got him at number 5 overall on my board. And really, second to the Hawks, realistically, who might fall to them at 8. I was really hoping that Jarrett Culver might fall to 8. But hopefully, if Schlink decides to trade up, I think probably Culver's the only guy that he should be targeting there. But I think Clark is super talented. He was clearly the second best guy in college this year. I think there's a way that he can fit with Collins if they get another center in the draft, or maybe even like if Dwayne Dedmon resigns, or even Alex Lynn could fit in there for matchups. But I think he's just so talented, I can't pass up on him there.
Fair enough. So Brandon Clark from Gonzaga goes to the Hawks at pick number 8. Will, you're going to be back on the clock in a couple of selections at pick number 10. At pick number 9, the Washington Wizards, their GM spot. It's an open GM spot, so Craig Bozic is taking over Craig from Brighton in the United Kingdom. It must be pretty early in the morning for you, Craig.
Certainly is. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here, but this is usual NBA time for us guys over here anyway, so no big deal. And with the 9th pick, the Washington Wizards select Jackson Hayes out of University of Texas.
Jackson Hayes, the center from Texas, a rim-running, rim protector. Jackson Hayes, a guy that hasn't shown much in terms of any sort of stretch ability. So what are you looking there? Not really sold on Thomas Bryant as any sort of lockdown or center of the future?
Not at all, really. I don't really view Thomas Bryant as a long-term NBA starter as such. I mean, DeAndre Hunter obviously came into contention. I think for me, in terms of what the Washington Wizards have tried to do over the years and failed miserably with Yama Himmy and Dwight Howard and other Thomas Bryant, I think they've really lacked sort of selecting somebody that has the sort of upside, the rim protection. I mean, I like the fact that he's got the 7'4" wingspan. Obviously, very much a project at this stage, but he's got the speed to be able to play in transition with John Wall and Bradley Beal. Being able to protect the rim isn't going to be an issue either. I mean, that's probably his primary asset at this point. But one of the things that I really like that I think will fit into the style of the personnel, bearing in mind I don't think that anyone thinks they're getting off the John Wall contract anytime soon, is that I think he can already play pretty good defense on the pick and roll. And once that frame fills out, I think he's going to be quite a weapon on the pick and roll on the offensive end as well, bearing in mind that at Texas last year, most of his points came, around the rim as such. So at this point, it's pretty much, short term is probably defensive upside. But the fact that, he's a 75% free throw shooter, I think gives hope that there could be some range that sort of develops in the future as well. So passing on Hunter to sort of take the upside and try and get the home run pick, which I think Washington Wizards really need at this point.
Yeah, it's not a bad fit with Beal and Wall when he eventually comes back. So Jackson Hayes comes in there at number 9 for the Wizards. Thank you, Craig. We go back to pick number 10 now. Will Langston has that Hawks selection. He went with Brandon Clark at pick number 8. What are you doing at pick number 10, Will?
I'm going to go with Goga Bitadze.
Oh, yes. Okay, so you've gone with Clark already, who played some center at Gonzaga. Goga is obviously a center, a big man from Georgia, not your Georgia, of course, the European Georgia. I really like Goga. I love this pick. Sell it to others who may not be as convinced.
Well, the reason I took Clark at 8 was because I was either going to take Hayes or Bitadze at 10 and was just going to take whichever one probably didn't go at 9. But I do think that Goga is the number 1 center in the draft, probably.
I agree with that.
He's enormous. He's an incredibly smart basketball player. He's a good defender, and he just makes a ton of sense on this team. And I think coupling him with Clark as well, that would be a pretty dynamic front court with John Collins as well.
Goga can protect the rim a bit. He can shoot. His defense is a question mark, of course, with his ability to switch and get out onto perimeter guys. But rim protection, he's strong. He can rebound. He can shoot. It's a really, really strong pick for the Hawks to get both Brandon Clark and Goga Bitadze there. So, Will, thank you for that. We'll talk to you a little bit later at pick 17 when the Hawks are back on the board. At number 11, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Nick Bales from Ely, Minnesota. Is that how I pronounce it, Nick?
Ely is the correct pronunciation.
Ely. All right, Ely, Minnesota. Nick, you have the role of Gerson Rosas here for the Minnesota Timberwolves. What are you doing with this selection?
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. So what I'm really looking for the Timberwolves is some power forward help. Sarge proved to be, not entirely kind of ineffective. Definitely wanted Brandon Clark with this pick, but I agree with him going earlier. So I think I'm going to go with Sekou Doumbouya.
Doumbouya. That's him. Yep.
Yeah,
I like this pick.
Yep, from Guinea. I just really like the physicality, big wingspan. I think he definitely has potential on defense and can make up for some shortcomings that Karl Anthony Towns has. Turnovers are a bit of a worry, but definitely something that can be improved on. And the 3-point is what kind of sold me here.
He's really young as well. He doesn't turn 19 until December. 6'11" wingspan. He's shown an ability to handle the ball. He can shoot a little bit. I think it's a really strong pick here at this spot. I probably would be looking at him. I possibly would have had him in over Jackson Hayes personally in there at number 9 for the Wizards or even Goga at that spot. But this is a strong pick. I wouldn't have wanted to see him fall any further down. So, Nick, thank you for making that pick of Sekou Doumbouya for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then we go to another Nick now at pick number 12. The Charlotte Hornets are on the clock. Nick coming to us from Chicago, Illinois. Nick, what are the Hornets doing with this pick?
Well, the Hornets are going big. They're in need of some down low scoring and some defense in that area. I made this pick with the presumption that Jeremy Lamb and Kemba resign, so the guard position is well stocked. And with this 12th pick, the Charlotte Hornets select Bruno Fernando.
Whoa, okay.
Out of Maryland.
That was not what I was expecting. Okay, let's go. Sell me on it.
Well, I just think that he is a very explosive athlete. He's a beast.
Yeah, he is.
Looking at his highlights, I think he just has the explosive athleticism that the Hornets need down low. He is everything that Cody Zeller is not, and hopefully can develop into everything that that they need at the down low defensive position as well. So I think his offensive game is there, but his defensive game needs to come on a little bit. I just think he has great athleticism and a little bit of a touch at the free throw line as well, with a 72% free throw rate. So like Jackson Hayes, I think he could develop some semblance of range at the center position. So I thought he was one of the better centers available in this draft, and when he slid to me, I figured I would take him.
Fair enough. You got to make that pick if that's what you believe in. I disagree, but who knows who's right at this point. I had Bruno way down my draft board there, but hey, plenty of stuff can change, and lots of picks get made that are incorrect in both directions. So that's hey, stick with what you believe in, Nick, and good to see that pick of Bruno Fernando going there.
Definitely. Thank you for the time.
Now at pick number 13, it's the Miami Heat's turn. Brent Jeeves is here, straight from Hobart, Australia. Brett, you've got a bit of a surprise player available to you here at pick number 13. DeAndre Hunter slid all the way down. What are you thinking? Is that the way you're going to go?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we kind of have to. I'm surprised that he's fallen this far. We certainly had him in the top 5 at least. So it's a bit of a no-brainer for us that we'll take DeAndre Hunter. We were hoping that the Bol might fall this far, and he has. We kind of see him as that 3-point shooter potentially down the road that we need. A bit of offense for us. We've got a really good defensive foundation in Winslow and Bam and Josh Richardson. So adding some offense was obviously the key, and we think in DeAndre Hunter he can certainly provide that. We're thrilled down here in Hobart/Miami Heatland.
Yeah, it's a pretty good pick to get Hunter here. It provides, again, more of that sort of Miami-style grinding type of defense with an ability to shoot. Who knows how that shooting is going to translate. Did shoot a high percentage in college. A lot of those were quite short threes, though, not necessarily NBA threes, but had 27 points in that NCAA championship game, as well as really putting the clamps on Jarrett Culver. So I think a real steal there for the Miami Heat, and Brett with that pick for DeAndre Hunter at number 13. At number 4, Brett, thanks for jumping on and doing that for us with the Miami Heat. At number 14, it's the Boston Celtics. Jad Hajar from Dubai. Now this must be the earliest time for anyone on here. I believe it's about 4:30 a.m. for you, Jad. Is that about right?
Yeah, man. It's 4:30 a.m.
4:30 a.m.
Good morning, guys.
Okay, so congratulations for you for getting up to make these Celtics pick. You're on here at number 14 for the first one of your 3 first-round selections. What are you doing at pick 14 for the Celtics?
For me, I had only 2 options. At number 14, it was either Brandon Clark or Kevin Porter Jr. And I can see Brandon Clark went at 8 to the Hawks, so I'm going to select Kevin Porter Jr.
Does the off-court stuff with Kevin Porter and the suspension from USC, does that give you any cause for concern? Or, as I've been talking about with many of these other picks, we're just really looking for upside in this draft, and you think that the Celtics and their organization and the players around could potentially straighten that out?
Yeah, we're basically just looking for the upside. He showed a lot of potential in the first part of the season. Some off-court stuff happened later, but I'm basically just betting on the upside of Kevin Porter.
Another one of these guys who's sort of like in between a 1 and a 2, more of a 2, with some dubious playmaking. Shooting's a question with all these guys, but the upside is clearly there. Really dynamic dribbling type of stuff from Kevin Porter. So Jad makes that pick for the Celtics at pick number 14. Thank you for that, Jad, and we'll hear from you a little bit later on. All right, next up, we've got the Detroit Pistons at pick number 15. We've got Zach Hoke from Elkridge, Maryland, jumping in here for the Pistons at number 15, the first pick outside the lottery. Zach, what are you doing?
Well, I was going to take Kevin Porter Jr. Had already decided on that. Pistons definitely need a wing scorer. Somebody could possibly be a creator, but he's a plus 3-point shooter. With him off the board, I'm kind of in a unique spot here. I considered Carson Edwards. Just for a scoring guard, I think he'd pair well with Blake Griffin, but he's a little undersized for my liking. So I'm going to take Cameron Johnson out of North Carolina. I like the height, definitely a plus 3-point shooter. I think he shot about 45% from three last year. He's a smooth athlete, if not a plus athlete. And I think he'll fit really well at that, that combo three. Maybe he's possibly playing a little small four ball for them when Blake or Andre are out of the game. And I think the Pistons, honestly, they need the shooting. And there's really no point guard here. I'd love to grab a point guard, but there just aren't any after pretty much Garland and Morant. So I'm going to go with Cameron Johnson here.
That's true. There isn't really much in terms of point guards in this draft. Cam Johnson, thought by many to be the best shooter in this draft. It's a bit earlier than I would have gone with him, but I understand the need. The Pistons desperately need that shooting around Griffin and Drummond. Are you concerned at all about the age? Probably the oldest player that's going to be drafted in this draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're always thinking, do I want an upside or do I want a guy that's more of a polished player? Of course, I'd love for him to be 19 here. I mean, that's why I considered a guy like Tyler Hero. Also, obviously, would give them some shooting. But Cameron Johnson is just so smooth. He's about 6'9". And honestly, the Pistons just need somebody with the attention that Blake gets who can consistently knock down the three-point jumper. And they really don't have anybody outside of Kennard that I really trust from three. So Johnson's pretty much who I landed on here. Like I said, I considered Carson Edwards. I'm really upset about Kevin Porter Jr. I think he would have been a perfect fit, but I'm going to go with Cameron Johnson here.
All right, so Cameron Johnson going to the Pistons there at number 15. At number 16, we've got the Orlando Magic, and their GM has not logged in, so I'm going to just take the reins here for the Magic at pick number 16. Got a few options here for Orlando. Of course, we know that they need guard help. Can Markel Fultz step into that role? We don't know at this point. DJ Augustin was their starting point guard last season. They've got Aaron Gordon, Mo Bamba, John Isaac in the front court. So I am looking at guards here in this spot, tossing up between a couple of guys. But I think I'm going to end up here with Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the sophomore guard, who shows a little bit of shooting ability. 6'9" wingspan, can be a secondary handler. They're probably looking for more of a primary handler, but hopefully Markel can be that guy, can defend a couple of positions, can shoot a bit, decent enough wingspan. I think that's the pick here for the Orlando Magic. Probably projects more as a backup in the future, but at least gives them another guard option so they're not relying upon Isaiah Briscoe to handle the load down the stretch for this Orlando Magic team. So the selection for the Magic there at pick number 16 is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We are back to Will Langston for the third of his first round picks with the Atlanta Hawks at 17. This is the pick that came from the Brooklyn Nets in that Allen Crabbe deal, Taurean Prince deal. So at number 17, Will, this is your third go at it. What are you going to go with?
Well, I think for the Hawks, obviously center is a hole for them. They're considering re-signing Dwayne Dedmon, but even with him and Alex Len and any one of the Plumlees, take your pick, I don't think they really have a whole lot of talent at center. So that's why I took the big guys with the first two picks. But the other thing the Hawks need is a starting caliber wing, and the top 20 or 25 outside of Jarrett Culver is just really bereft of guys that can play the wing, shooting guard. So that really leaves me with picking the best player on the board right now, I think. And in my opinion, that's Grant Williams, the forward out of Tennessee. I have him at number 7 on my board. I think he's one of the smartest players in this draft. He is a bit old, but outside of Zion and Brandon Clark, he had probably the third best college season this past year. I think he's just a really good basketball player. He's never going to be a superstar, maybe even a star, but even with John Collins, Brandon Clark, and Goga Bitadze, there's no rule that says you can't have 3 or 4 good big guys on the same team.
You never know how these guys are going to pan out as well. So, having multiple cracks at it, very much the Hinkie method for the Sixers back those few years ago. I really like Grant Williams at this spot as well. He wasn't the next highest on my board, but he was pretty close to it. So it's a good selection there for the Hawks. Will, thank you for your 3 selections, playing the role of Travis Schlenk. At pick number 18, the Indiana Pacers are on the board. We've got a fellow Australian on here, Tim Buchner. Did I pronounce that correctly, Tim?
Boucher.
Boucher. All right, sorry, I don't know how I got that wrong. Tim Boucher is here from Sydney, taking over for the Indiana Pacers. Tim, what are you doing?
Seems like a bit of a reach here. However, the draft is really lacking in backcourt players in this section of the draft. I'm going to go with Matthias Thibault out of Washington. I think he can hit the ground running for the Pacers. He's not going to be a star player, but he's someone who can be a versatile role player that can fit in any line. I think he fits perfectly with Indiana's defensive style. And I think the pairing of Oladipo and Thibodeau could be one of the best defensive backcourts.
Yeah, well, we know he had this insane steal and block rate in college. Really good free throw percentage. The three-point numbers were sort of a bit off in his last season, but they'd been solid in the previous 3 seasons. I really like Tybal here. I would have thought, it's not that high. I don't think it's that high for him. The offensive stuff is a bit of a concern, but they do have Oladipo, and depending on what they do with these other positions, he doesn't need to be a high usage guy, but providing that level of defense is going to be key. So I think it's a pretty strong pick. And I always, when we get to this area of the draft, I like to prioritize wing guard type players over big men a lot of the time. So you'll see guys that might be considered like the 30th or 35th best overall player, but getting those guys in, there's such a dearth of them, have quality defensive wing type stoppers that I think they have to jump up, and that's exactly what Tim's done here with Matisse Thybulle from Washington. Tim, thanks for making that pick. At number 19, the Spurs, Tyler Martins is here. Tyler from Victoria, Canada. Tyler, San Antonio on the board, the first of their 2 picks. What are you doing with this selection?
Well, right now the Spurs, we're feeling pretty good about our backcourt with Murray, White, and our first rounder last year, Lonnie Walker. So in the interest of needing a score and to actually get some youth up front, we're going to go with Romeo Langford here to try to grab some scoring punch off the wing, and someone who showed himself capable of playing good on-ball defense last year, and someone we have confidence in that can develop a three-point shot.
He shot about, I think, 29% last season for Indiana, but if there's any team that's going to develop that shot, it's Chip England and the San Antonio Spurs to see if that can happen. A guy that struggled through that wrist injury last season, how much of that wrist injury was the factor in that poor shooting remains to be seen, but he's slid down here. I've seen him mocked at spots at pick 11, pick 12 in the draft, and again, after pick 2 or pick 3, the draft is so flat that anyone could fall at any point, and it is a strong pick just to get a bit more wing depth on the team. Probably a bit undersized to play the 3. I think Langford more of a 2, but has that value. And if he's I suppose he's 6'7" with a 6'11" wingspan, so maybe he could play in that role. Can slash a little bit as well. Just getting those guard and wing type players is always key. So making Romeo Langford go there to pick number 19 for the Spurs. Strong selection. We'll hear from you again really soon, Tyler. Well, not really soon, at the end of this draft. And then at number 20, we're back with Jad from Dubai. You've got the Celtics' second pick here. They're picking again at pick number 22. They went with their first pick with Kevin Porter Jr. What are you doing at pick number 20, Jad? Jad, are you still there?
Some shooting off the bench.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear the first bit of that. Jad, didn't hear the first bit of that, mate. You cut out, so just go back again. Didn't hear who you actually picked. Jad, go again.
Hey man, yeah. So I have 3 players to select from, and I have 2 picks from the following 3 picks. So I'm gonna go with Tyler Hero.
Tyler Hero, yep, no problem. Because you're cutting in and out there, mate. So I might just not cut you off, but you can take Tyler Hero there with that pick, a strong shooter out of Kentucky with an ability to develop some other skills. Really important for the Celtics just to get some shooting in that backcourt. We'll be back to you in a second. Hopefully your connection comes back. At 21, Zach Bogdan has this pick for the Thunder. We've heard the Thunder have been looking to trade this pick to try and save some money, but we're under the impression here that, Zach, you are making this selection. You are from Salt Lake City. What are you doing for the Thunder here at pick number 21?
Well, this kind of got dashed. I was really hoping for Tyler Hero to let this fall one more.
Now Zach's cutting out on me. It was going all so well.
I'm just looking over some notes real fast.
All right, Zach, you're back now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. So you were going to go with Tyler Hero. He is off the board now at 21. What are you doing for the Thunder?
best two options off the board, in my opinion, for the Thunder, and Cam Johnson and Tyler Hero. I think Bol Bol would be a good addition behind Steven Adams, with Nerlens Noel likely leaving in free agency, and it could really help out their spacing.
All right, so that was just because it is cutting in and out a little bit, Zach. That was Bol from Oregon that you're going for there?
Yes.
All right, so the concerns with Bol, of course, are the foot injury. He's obviously ridiculously tall, unbelievably long, can basically dunk without jumping. Ridiculously thin frame as well, much like his father, Manute. Broken foot is a concern of someone of that height. There's also concerns about his ability to, what's the right word, try. His love of the game has been questioned. His commitment to it has been questioned, but an excellent shooter. Great rim protector. Defensively, he has some problems with his really high center of gravity. Gets pushed off the ball really, really easily. But as you said, like Nerlens Noel potentially moving on, getting a guy that can provide some rim protection and some shooting in that second unit could be really key. And it is worth taking a flyer on him at that spot. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Bol fall into the 30s or 40s in the draft. But a strong selection there for you, Zach, at pick number 21. All right, at pick 22, the Celtics are back on the board. Jad Hajar is here again. Hopefully this connection can hold. Jad, let's make this pick for the Celtics.
Yeah, so I'm going to make this quick. It's clear for me we're going to take Rui Hachimura.
Okay.
Because we need some big men on the bench, and he fits perfectly with what Danny Ainge and the Celtics would like to do.
So Hachimura, a really strong scorer at the college level. I have some concerns about his defense and how his scoring will translate into the NBA. I'm not as high on him as others, but I've seen him mocked at pick number 12 to the Hornets. So I think at pick number 22, it's a really strong selection there for Rui to come in and be a bit of a scoring big, with the potential that Horford, Baines, and Tice, all of them could be gone. It's unlikely that all of them can be gone, but they all are free agents in this, or potential free agents in this upcoming season. So Jad rounds out his Celtics selections with Rui Hachimura after selecting Kevin Porter Jr. first at 14 and then Tyler Hero at number 20. Jad, thanks for waking up in the very early hours of the morning over in Dubai to jump on. All right, at pick number 23, the Jazz. I've got Joel McGinnis straight from the Gold Coast here in Australia to make this selection for the Utah Jazz. Joel, what are we doing for Utah at pick 23? Can you hear me, Joel? Joel is having issues with his microphone, but he's given me his pick here for the Jazz at pick number 23, a real slider in this draft. Nasir Little fallen all the way down to number 23. It's a really smart pick. Little could go as high as number 11 in the NBA draft, I believe. Struggled significantly in college, only played about 18 minutes a game after coming in as a highly regarded recruit, but getting, again, a wing player with the potential to create a little bit, to be a guy that can score, potentially can shoot as well. I think it's a really smart selection to not let a guy like this fall as far as he has. Really, really smart option here. 6'6", 7'1" wingspan, ability to slash, some defensive upside as well. Really hard to shit on that pick at all. Really, really strong selection there for Joel there at number 23. All right, we're back now for pick 24 for the Philadelphia 76ers. It appears their GM has gone AWOL, probably trying to organize a few burner accounts on his phone. So I'm going to make this pick for the Sixers. I think we've got to take Keldon Johnson here. Out of Kentucky, the Sixers' need for wing depth is pretty apparent. A guy that's got some shooting upside, some defensive ability to play maybe that James Ennis role from this past season if Ennis doesn't return. So I think getting a guy like Keldon Johnson here would work. I would have really liked Matisse Thybulle to fall this far, but of course he is gone. I would have snapped up Nasir Little with this pick if he didn't just go to the Jazz at pick 23. So I'm going with Keldon Johnson out of Kentucky as a wing option for this team. And again, a lot of the Kentucky guys, you have to always give a bit of a benefit of the doubt in terms of them developing more skills in the NBA. And as we've seen time and time again for these guys coming out of Calipari's system. So Keldon Johnson is the pick at 24 for the Sixers. At 25, the Trailblazers are on the clock. Matt Day from San Rafael, California is here making the selection for the Trailblazers. Matt, another one of those guys like Kyle who's in, I think, every one of my dynasty leagues. Matt, what are you doing for this pick for the Blazers?
Josh, of course, I'm going to say I wanted one of the players that you just took right in front of me. Keldon Johnson could do everything that we needed. But instead, I'm going to stay loyal to the Bay Area and take KZ Okpala out of Stanford. I think that he can bring in the things that we may lose if we lose Evan Turner's contract, not this year, but next year. He's a guy that can handle the ball and shoot it better than Evan Turner. But Rodney Hood, we might also lose him, and he can take over some of that as well.
I'm really conflicted with Okpala, mainly because of his name. And yeah, seeing the last letter of the alphabet there, I want to pronounce it as Z. So, but if I start calling him KZ Okpala, maybe I'll do that just as a differentiation point. But getting him out of Stanford into Portland makes sense. Good old KZ Okpala there on that wing again. Al-Farouq Aminu might be leaving as well.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
So another option there, pushing Mo Harkless up to the 4, Okpala at the 3 in a couple of years' time potentially. It's a strong pick in this area of the draft for the Portland Trailblazers. Matt, thanks for making that selection. It goes back to me now at pick 26 as the actual GM of the Cavs. With that first pick, I took RJ Barrett at number 5, which I was really happy with. I think here with this selection, I'm going to take PJ Washington, an undersized center, but can maybe play a little bit of the 4, some small ball 5 guy from Kentucky, a solid enough scorer. Their center rotation, Tristan Thompson, Ante Žižić at the moment, Kevin Love still around. Those guys aren't necessarily long-term solutions. Not that PJ Washington necessarily is, but he could be a guy that very easily goes in the top 17, 18 picks in this draft, and I'm happy to get him there at pick number 26 for the Cleveland Cavaliers, ending their first round draft. And then at pick number 27, the Brooklyn Nets, Liam Allison is here, also from Melbourne. Liam, the Nets, they traded their first pick away, number 17, to the Hawks, but now you're on the board, on the clock at 27. What are you doing for Brooklyn?
Yeah, I'm thinking about Dylan Windler from Belmont, Josh. So probably taking him a little bit above where he would have been projected in most mocks. But just looking at what Brooklyn's after, I mean, obviously D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, they've got quite a influx of guards, if you like, along with Joe Harris and potentially Kyrie Irving coming into the fold. So I wouldn't mind targeting a wing. I think Windler is a guard, but at 6'8", has a bit of size. Obviously can really stroke the 3 shot well over 40% in his last 2 seasons for Belmont. So, and also like the fact that he is 6'8" and actually averaged 10.8 rebounds per game last season. Now, you think that probably won't translate to the NBA, but nonetheless, shows some size, versatility, and ability to do multiple things, I think, on an NBA roster.
His initial statistical translations came out really, really strong. In terms of the guys, and this is just, I think I did 110 guys and just purely statistical, not like looking at situation or team they're going to or what their situation was like in college. He came out as the 7th best guy out of those top 110 players. For reference, the number 1 player was Brandon Clark, then Zion, then Sagaba Kanate, mainly because of his high block numbers. Bol, Matisse Thybulle, Ja Morant, and then Dylan Windler came in next with a really strong, that rebound, the 3-point shooting, the efficiency from the field and from the line was really, really strong. And getting these wing players, I talk about it all the time, can be really important, and I think it's a good pick there for the Nets, who did just bring Taurean Prince in, but getting that depth, they love their depth, and to develop players over a couple of years' time, I think that's a strong option. Next, we go to the Warriors. Thank you, Liam, for jumping on and making that pick. Next, we go to the Warriors at pick number 28, Jacob Dool, another person from Tasmania, the second guy from Hobart here on this mock draft. Jacob, the Warriors, 28. What are we doing?
Well, I've got to say I'm really disappointed. I had Dylan Windler just about as my top target around this area. So instead, I'm going to have to go with Ty Jerome from Virginia. Really nice playmaker, really nice shooter. I think the finals have shown that the Warriors lack a bit of shot creation and playmaking off the bench once Steph Curry and their other All-Stars go out. So I think Jerome could really be a bit of a difference maker there for them.
Yeah, I think that's a solid enough pick. Sean Livingston obviously getting to the end of the line there in terms of his career. Just another shooter. And I talk about this all the time, having Durant, having Clay, having Steph, whether Durant is back or not, he's not going to be playing next season regardless, pretty much. But after those 3 excellent shooters, there's no one else who can really shoot. Quinn Cook's had his moments, but he struggles defensively, and getting a guy like Jerome can really help. An additional ball handler. It's not going to have an impact initially, but a strong enough pick at this point in the draft. Thank you, Jacob, for making that selection. At number 29, the San Antonio Spurs. Back on the clock, Tyler. You are making this selection after going with Romeo Langford the first time around. What are you doing here at pick number 29, the pick that came from the Toronto Raptors? If you're still there, Tyler.
think a player that would fit our system perfectly. He kind of does a bit of everything from scoring, shooting, and playmaking.
Tyler, just give me Tyler. That you actually announcing the play got cut out. I didn't hear who you actually said. So go back and tell me who you picked.
The Spurs are going to take Jonte Porter.
Okay. Now, really like this pick. So explain to me why Porter has fallen this far, because probably would have been close to it, or would have been a top 10 pick if everything had gone right for him this season. But what happened to him this year?
Knee injury, which was the reason that he didn't come out last year, which was unfortunate because I think he was ideally a target of the Spurs in the first round last year as well.
Yep.
And this late in the draft is just a great value to a player that I think would really help modernize the Spurs offense going forward after LaMarcus is done.
He tore his ACL twice. It came back way too early from the first one and then tore it again, which is obviously a massive red flag for him injury-wise. But as a player, a guy that can pass, a guy that can shoot, it's Michael Porter's brother, can rebound, a modern type center. Look, he would have been almost definitely to me a top 10 pick if he didn't have these ACL injuries. The passing, shooting, rebounding big man who has some defensive issues, but offensively really, really strong. And again, taking that flyer on a guy, the 2 ACLs is really scary. But we've seen Jabari Parker come back from that second ACL. He sucked on defense before. He sucks now. But the athleticism and stuff is still pretty good for Jabari. So could Jonte provide that? I think it's a really, really strong pick for the Spurs there at pick number 29. Thank you, Tyler, for jumping on. And then at pick number 30, no GM for them has made an appearance, so I'm going to make that last selection in the draft for the Milwaukee Bucks at pick number 30. Let's see, I've got my board here. I've got 2 guys that I'm debating between, 3 guys that I'm debating between. I think I'm going to take Nick Claxton out of Georgia. I was debating whether it was Luka Samanic or Taylor Horton-Tucker. They were the three guys I was looking at that spot. I'm going to take Nick Claxton. We don't know whether Ersan Ilyasova is going to be, he's not going to be on this team long term. He's here for one more season. Brook Lopez, obviously a key figure in this Bucks season. Will he return? Claxton's probably more of a backup center moving forward, but has shown a lot. I think it's a bit of a steal for him to go at this selection and could very easily go in the top 20 of this draft. So the Bucks end up with Nick Claxton at pick number 30. That'll wrap it up for the first round of this mock draft. The first time that I've done this, getting listeners on to take control of teams. A few little issues, but I think overall it went relatively well for this mock draft. So make sure you guys make sure you're subscribing to this podcast, and do that by downloading the Himalaya podcast app. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and on YouTube as well. Give it a 5-star rating, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Let me know your thoughts on this mock, what picks you would have made differently, which picks you liked, which picks you didn't. And thank you to all of the GMs who jumped on and joined in this first ever Locked On Fantasy Basketball NBA listener mock draft. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.